Thank you for joining this edition of AutoWorkz Insight, Digital Fitness for the Future of Work, with Verne Perigord and Rob Ginzel of PwC.
Open the lines, and if you guys want to chime in with your response, we're happy to do that as well. So, I think actually, I think the okay. So the polling is it just says participate in the discussion. So basically, we can open it up and have an informal back and forth conversation. But before
Sure.
we do that, we'll just do a quick introduction of myself and Rob. So, like I had mentioned, we're with PwC, and I work in our advisory or consulting practice and helping clients, transform their finance functions to be more efficient, be more automated, and also help clients go through mergers and acquisitions and divestitures. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Rob. Rob, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Sure. And first off, thank you for this opportunity today. So similar to Verne, I'm also part of our advisory consulting practice, and I work with our clients on workforce transformations, digital workforce transformations, and then other change management programs to help them adopt new technologies, new learning strategies, new ways to manage and navigate talent. Spend a lot of my time working with our industrial manufacturing clients, including automotive and aerospace and defense. Spent part of my childhood growing up in the Michigan area, so I have relatives close by in Detroit. So definitely love to be back in the area when possible.
Well, thank you both for being here. We're so excited.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're happy to do this. We're also always glad to have a conversation in the community and with clients and students alike around the future of the workforce and digital and things like that. So we're glad to be here. So with that, before we jump into I guess what I'll say, so in terms of the agenda for today, you'll see we want to talk about, what is digital? What does it really mean? Talk about what does the future of work look like. We'll share a little bit about the PwC story in terms of how we approach or think about digital. We'll include some client stories as well. And then at the end, we'll introduce you to a digital fitness app that we've developed that's available to anyone to use across the world to help you assess your own current digital fitness and come up with a plan of action to increase your digital acumen. And so before we then jump into the content, I know we asked that question at the very beginning. What do you think of digital when you hear about it referred to in the context of work? So if we can open the lines, Ida, and feel free, participants, to chime in, let us know what comes to mind when you think about digital, and what concerns do you think you have or fears you have around digital? Don't all speak at once.
Anybody have anything? What do you mean when digital means to you?
Everyone's being shy today, huh?
Okay,
So make a call on somebody.
Can
Nicole speak?
yes. So as in regards to digital, I think of like social media, the internet, websites, and things of that nature. I don't consider myself as being tech savvy. However, when I started my businesses, I've had to create my own websites. I've had to, be my own PR person, things of that nature. So, I'm not extremely good at it, and I don't necessarily like it so much, only because, my focus is on doing my work, what I know that I am an expert at. So for me, it's somewhat challenging in the age of technology because, I know that it's necessary, but I'm not the best at it. So.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you for sharing. That's great. And we'll speak to some of that today in terms of what digital is and talking about being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and doing things that you aren't necessarily familiar with. So thank you for sharing that. We'll definitely speak to that today. Anybody else want to share?
This is Pat Hilberg, and I'm representing the Southeast Michigan STEM Alliance. I'm particularly concerned about the digital manufacturing workforce moving forward over the next number of years. And I'm going to refer to a study that I think PwC did, as a matter of fact, with the Manufacturing Institute. And I use this quote frequently, but if you think of the 2028 manufacturing workforce, and that'll be a very digital savvy workforce, only 2/3 of that workforce was working in 2018, which means we need to find 5 million people to fill jobs. And 75% of what the current people know will no longer be relevant. Oh, there's a big need for educating the workforce and moving away from what we might have thought of in 1960 as manufacturing to what we're going to think about in 2030 as manufacturing. So I'll stop with that.
Oh, great. No, thanks, Pat. Thanks for sharing that. That's actually a really good insight. And we'll definitely, there's a slide later on you'll see that talks about the educational gap, especially as it relates to people graduating from college and the skills we need in the workforce. So we'll definitely talk about that as well.
And Pat, one thing you also said that resonated is, gone are the days that one goes to college or finishes from trade school or what have you, and they're in the workforce. It is the constant evolution on upskilling themselves and how do they do that? What tools? And the organizations have expectations now in terms of what self-learning you do on your own to continually keep your skills and knowledge fresh. And as technology changes so quickly, it's become even more and more important. So certainly talk about that as well.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah. So Rob, did you want to kick us off then on slide 4?
Yeah. So I think hearing some of the responses from the group today, digital means something different for everyone. And one thing that we are talking a lot about with our clients is that we live in an age of digital disruption. If anything, the past 2 months have taught us, in terms of everything that we've experienced, certainly from the tragedy that COVID has shown upon us, but also what we've seen is the continuous disruption of technology, right? We've had to adopt. And how do we really think about creating a mindset and our openness to being digitally agile, not only for what we need to do from our personal lives and how technology comes into play, but what we've had to do to adapt just to perform our daily jobs, just even over the past 2 months that we've experienced. So digital disruption is here to stay. And how do we prepare ourselves and to continuously stay agile for the changes that we have no idea are coming forward with us. Okay. So, so what does PwC and how do we define digital? And so I'll just start off when PwC really has started our journey in a very, very in-depth way over the past 3 years. We started this process to really upskill all of our team members. And those reasons are, our clients are creating disruption in terms of their business models. So we have had to do something to stay abreast with that. We, are really thinking about the experience that we're trying to deliver for how we do work, and our clients are demanding that. And so we have had to adopt. We've had to think about our internal operations and how do we use automation to just better leverage technology to think about transactional processes and what that has meant for our workforce and what we have asked them to do to upskill and to stay current with the new technologies that we are seeing and to be fluent in digital topics. If anything, the digital fitness app that we'll talk about, it's about an introduction in many ways to all of these digital topics. And then it's about ensuring kind of trust in the information that our clients ask us to secure. And so all of these together have really been why we have started upon our digital journey, as I've mentioned, over the past 3 years or so, that we've really doubled down on that effort. Verne, anything that you would add in terms of our, how PwC started this journey?
Yeah, I think one thing I'd point out, especially around the experience and operations. What I found over the last few years is PwC internally has changed the way that we even communicate with ourselves internally to drive adoption of new processes and procedures and so forth. So if you think about even conferences or company meetings, maybe 5, 10 years ago, it'll be, a big, large room with a podium and someone at a podium and just speaking, maybe a PowerPoint behind them. But over the last 3 to 5 years, I've seen that we've just changed the way we communicate in that it's almost like a TV production. There's like big backdrops and there's lighting and there's effects and there's a whole stage and a set and everything. And all of that is part of what's now required to ensure that folks get the message and they understand what direction the firm is going in. We can't just deliver messages in a same old format as we did in the past. And I think to speak to the point that someone made earlier in terms of having to do things that you don't necessarily want to do because it's not your skill set, we as a firm have been adapting and being agile to do things differently, even if it's not in our core accounting, finance, consulting skill set. We've had to find ways to, better educate our workforce and also better motivate people to help drive our productivity as a firm. And we're also looking at our clients who are expecting more from us. They're expecting us to do more for them with less resources. And so we've had to find creative ways to get work done more efficiently and more productively. So leveraging automation, leveraging offshore services and things like that. So I think because of all this disruption and the expectations of our clients and our staff is different, we've had to think outside the box in terms of how do we, meet the need that's being asked of us by various stakeholders.
Verne, I'll just add one comment. You'd mentioned communication. And one thing, and this just over the past couple of weeks, right? So on any given day, Verne or I and any of our colleagues, depending on what our clients leverage for their communication platform, we could be in Zoom meetings, we could be in Microsoft Teams, we use a Google platform to communicate internally. So we have all these tools and devices and are interacting with our clients' preferred way, and then PwC has a preferred way, and just over the few weeks that we've been operating very significantly in this environment, all of these technologies come into play, and every one of us at PwC has really had to adapt and be comfortable with that approach to working.
Yep.
It's funny you should say that because I'm a smaller company, and for us as well, I've gotten really good at a lot of different web conferencing platforms and simulation platforms because everybody's doing something different, but we're all doing something pretty similar. Exactly.
And then, for our business of client service, we have to be on top of what our client's preferred method is. So for us, it necessitates getting up to speed very quickly.
Now, you had mentioned that now that when you have meetings with your clients, they have turned into a production. Is that being driven because you have younger populations coming into the workforce and they I call it edutainment. They like to be educated through entertainment?
I think that's part of it. I think that's definitely part of it because, to keep people's attention and keep them captivated, there's so many other stimuli outside us, near us and outside of us that we need to find ways to keep our audience captivated. So I think, with people having a lot more shorter attention spans that the scientists are now telling us, we got to find creative ways to keep people engaged. And so the production is required, but then also the technology is there, and so people are now expecting that. So when you watch the news or when you watch other things online, you see all this production. So the level of the bar has now been raised. And so as we as a firm, if we want to say that we're a leading firm, we have to be able to compete in that same level. So if we see other people or other messengers or forums doing certain things with certain production, we need to find ways that we can also meet that or exceed that bar.
Great.
Yeah. So moving on in terms of, in terms of digital and the conversation we have with our clients. So we have this conversation. I just literally had this conversation yesterday morning with a large industrial client of mine about how do they transform their finance organization and what does it mean to be digital. So this is an example of some of the things we're talking with our clients about. And so if you're going to be working with some of these large companies and so forth, you're now getting inside knowledge in terms of what they're thinking. And so one of the things you'll see there is adopting technology and being innovative. So technology is constantly changing. Even back in the day when computers first came out, the saying was, as soon as you buy a computer, it's outdated. And that's true even more now than it was ever before, in that as soon as you get used to one platform or to one technology, there's something else to replace it or something else that's going to add to it. So you have to always be willing and able and ready to adopt to new technologies and be innovative, because that's the way the future is holding. Things are continuously getting better as we go. Another thing is around data. Data is big business right now. Anybody that knows about mining data and managing data and cleansing data, you will have a job for life, because data is now what's the undercurrent or the foundation of all technology, of all decision making. So we are driving our clients to understand that they need to do better jobs of harnessing their data, managing the data, governing that data, because that data is now what's going to be leveraged to then make good decisions in the long run. Another one, this is where it comes about experiences that we talked about earlier about the whole production, is that you have to now design experiences to get your staff to adopt to your new ways of working. Gone are the days where a CEO can says, do it this way or else. That is no longer the way we see change accomplishing in an organization. Change is much sure. You set the agenda as a CEO or as a leader of an organization, sure, but you have to find creative ways to get your staff to adopt that and actually use the technology. I've seen many clients where we go into a client, they have these great software tools and these great technology, but the people are still using only a small fraction of what the tool can do, primarily because no one encourages them to use it or they aren't comfortable. So we at PwC have been designing experiences where we gamify the adoption of different technologies. Even within ourselves, like there's a tool called Salesforce that we use to manage our lead generation and our client interaction. When we first launched that maybe 2 or 3 years ago, PwC gamified that, where they said, okay, for every activity you do in Salesforce, you get 1 to 5 to 10 points, and people who get the most points will win a prize or recognition, or we tie your points to your compensation or to your bonuses. And so by doing things like that, we're designing new experiences to get people to adopt new technologies and new ways of doing things.
And that to me is a biggie, because I actually worked with the firm, will be nameless, last year, and they had bought this wonderful Salesforce package. And I was still amazed. I was getting reports in Excel. So I said, I was like, you're not using the Salesforce platform? They went, oh no. It's just to say, that's never going to happen. And so you had all these different departments that were still using Excel, even though they did this rollout of this wonderful platform. No one was hardly using it.
And Ida, we see that all the time. And I think, when I trace back the roots to that type of a scenario, it's often that the organization didn't invest in really articulating the benefits in terms of why and how it can make one's role easier, number one. And then to Verne's point around what were some of the techniques that they deployed to encourage adoption? Did we do something with gamification? Did we tie it to one's performance? So all of those pieces come together, and in creating an experience that's inviting and makes you want to be in the technology, followed up by the commitment that an organization has invested in that tool, and we want to reap the most from those benefits there.
Yep, exactly. And one thing I want to put on this slide before we move on is around moving at startup speed and behaviors. So you can't take, 6 months to a year to like assess something and make a decision and then move with it and then take the time to adopt it and implement it. Like, you got to be moving at lightning fast speed. So you're going to have to, don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. So if you have an idea, like at PwC now, if you have an idea, they're like, okay, run with it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we'll learn from it and we'll figure something else out. But you don't want to spend too much time figuring out what to do and being paralyzed by fear or in uncertainty. You have to like welcome the uncertainty, welcome that fear, and figure out a way to leverage that and grow from any mistakes that you make. So you got to be ready to move at lightning speeds. And by doing all of this in terms of what digital is, that's then what's driving productivity and growth and profitability. And so without some of these underlying digital concepts, you won't be able to achieve the growth targets that you want, or the productivity and profitability that you would want as an organization. And in terms of how the workforce is changing, I think what the main thing I want you to take away from this slide is that today's workforce, to be successful, you have to be willing to be agile and be able to take on different roles as needed. So gone are the days where you can be an AP clerk or a file clerk for 30 years and then retire. Those days are gone. You can't just say, that's not my job. Here's what I do, and it's all what I do. Clients who I see that have situations like that, they aren't very successful, because like even right now, I'm working with a client trying to understand their end-to-end budgeting process. And everyone I talk to, they're like, well, I know this part. I don't know what happens over there. I don't know what happens there. And because of that, it's been a nightmare trying to understand exactly how it works. And so we want the workforce now to say, no longer can you say that's not my job. Everything is your job. And because also we want to be able to retain those millennials and retain smart talent. They want to be challenged. They want to learn things as they go. So you want to be able to learn different jobs and do the one that's needed at the time. And so as an example today, Rob was actually not supposed to be on the call with me. It was supposed to be another colleague of mine, Anna, but she got pulled into another urgent client discussion today. So it was Robert to come in at the last minute. But I have to be agile, Robert to be agile, and so everyone has to be able to step into different shoes as they need to. So even if you are the AP clerk or you manufacture this piece of a widget that you're making, or a car, or whatever it is, you need to be, as a workforce of today, knowledgeable about what happens outside your immediate purview, because you never know what happens where you may be asked to step in to another role. And also you want to be, as an individual, constantly challenged and constantly growing and learning new things. So you want to be able to learn other things as well. And that's the key to be successful in this environment.
And I think that's good, because I have found that a lot of times people are not flexible. To me, one of the most difficult things in corporate America is people accepting change.
Yeah.
But I built my career on change, because I would go looking for work. I would get my work done and go find something else to do. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing when you do that, how dependent a corporation gets upon you, because they know that you're going to do the work that nobody else maybe wants to do, which always keeps you in high demand.
Yeah.
I actually have a question on that.
Sure.
How do you kind of leverage the fine line, that old adage saying, don't be the jack of all trades and master of none, with us kind of going into the ideology of understanding other job roles so that you can cross-train, I think is the term they use now. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of across the board stay relevant but stay productive so that you don't get overwhelmed with all the information that's available when it comes to cross-training?
No, that's a good point. Now I'll chime in, and Rob chime in over the top of this as well. But I feel as if it's okay to have your specialty area, or the thing that you're best at, that you know everything about. But we're saying is that don't let that be an excuse to not understand what happens outside of that specialty area. So you don't have to know everything about everything else, but you should know something about some other things as well. And what I find is when I go into clients, because I'm coming into a company that I've never worked with before, I just become curious. It's okay, how does this work? Who does this? Why do you do it this way? But just being curious and asking questions just to understand from my own comprehension, I find that I become a resource to the clients themselves. So they'd be like, okay, Verne, who do I call for this? I'm like, well, you've been working here for 20 years. You don't know who to call. So, I mean, I don't say that, but in my mind, I'm like, that's really telling, because I come in with a curious mindset of just wanting to understand how things work. And by doing that, I become a key resource, because even though I'm not perfect at, let's say, supply chain or environmental issues or manufacturing, I know enough to answer the question, or at least I know enough as to where to find the answer or who to go to for the answer. So I think to answer the question is, it's okay to have your niche, which you're good at, but also be knowledgeable about what happens outside of your niche area.
Yeah, and I think what I would also comment upon is there's a certain base level of skills, and digital fluency, that no matter what functional area or expertise that you had, that there's an expectation that, you know what, maybe a year ago, I didn't need to know how I create a survey in a Google format, but I do now. And I take that with me, whether I'm working in a human resource or a finance function or an operational role. The other thing that we're seeing a lot on, we believe, and we'll talk a little bit about the digital fitness app, that we are giving kind of a broad level of all of these various topics on digital fluency. But with that, there are, how do you really become an expert or a guru in data visualization and the courses that you could take on that? So I think it's thinking about your base level knowledge and digital fluency that across whatever organizational role is now the new expectation. But then even thinking about, are there particular areas within that skill set that you would function or want to specialize in? Data visualization is one that we hear a lot about from organizations looking to really ensure that they have very trained specialists with that. Data mining as well. Maybe a little bit more specialized statistical knowledge that maybe not everyone would gather or acquire. But those are some of the areas that we're seeing people do some doubling down in some focus areas. But great question, Jahara, on that balance between what is my base level of knowledge that I need to have to digitally upskill myself, but also keeping in mind what is my area of expertise and focus for the role that I have or want to have in an organization.
Yeah, definitely. We even in PwC or in consulting terms, they have what's called a major and a minor. So my major, if you will be finance transformation for organizations. But my minor is also, I do work around mergers and acquisitions and divestitures, and I focus mainly on industrial clients, but I've also done work in technology and media and consumer products. So it's just having that initial major, which you focus on, but also being open to learning other things outside of your initial focus. And which actually leads us to a great example. So I want to give this example of a typical finance organization of the future. So if you see the different roles that are here, you don't see a bookkeeper, you don't see an AP clerk, you don't see a file clerk. You see data scientists and digital engineers and global process owners and transformation leads. So this is what the accounting function of the future would look like. And so this is only accounting, but think about any other organization, any other function in a company, whether it be supply chain or manufacturing or HR or legal. You are going to have to start to think about what are those different roles are going to look like. And so one thing that comes to mind here is, roles aren't going away, they're just changing. So when you hear people talk about robotics or using computers to do certain things, the individual manual activity, that might go away, but there's still going to be a need for someone to do other things like programming the robots or upkeeping the robots or analyzing the outputs and things like that. And so you have to always be aware of that. And so the other thing that comes to mind here is that, what got you here won't keep you here. So you went to school, you got a degree, you did a trade school, you got a certificate in a certain function. That just gives you a hall pass to get in the door, to then learn some more and to continue transforming. It doesn't mean you're gonna stay with what you know and that's it. So once you get in the door and you start doing that work, now it's okay, now what's the next step? What do I learn next? So I think to the point you made earlier, Pat, in that what you know now, it won't be relevant 5 years from now. And that's true in many different sectors, not just manufacturing. So once you're in the door, how do you figure out what it is that you need to know to be able to propel yourself and the organization to the next level? So learning actually never stops. Like me, I've been at PwC for 16 years now, and literally every single day I learn something new. It could be something as simple as how to do a certain formula in Excel, to designing a automated robot, or how to create a company in Russia, for example. It could be anything, but my degree and my CPA and whatever I learned in school, that just gave me the hall pass to get in the door at PwC to then now learn some more.
And I think that that's interesting how you say that, because now that I look back over my career, for many years I was with what they can now call a business liaison. But I technically didn't have a job title wherever I went, because what I would do is I would be the conduit between the accounting department and the finance department and the technology department, because they both spoke two different languages, and they always would be in conflict with each other. So I pretty much decided on my own that I was going to be that liaison and kind of built a career around it. Now they actually have a job that's called a business liaison.
Yeah.
I just think you have to be fluid and just find your way based on where you are and say, okay, where do I see our needs that the company has based on the information that's at your disposal?
Yep, that's exactly right. And that's actually, to say quiet as it's kept, what keeps us as consultants employed as well, because we go into clients and sometimes we're there to help facilitate conversations between IT and HR and IT and finance, because they don't talk to each other. They all work in their silos. So that's a good point. So if you want to be someone that can help bridge that gap, that also helps you have more job security in an organization as well.
That's right.
And then this slide, Pat, is one I mentioned earlier in terms of the gap that college graduates, only 23% will have the data science and analytical skills that jobs are going to require. And so there's going to be a huge demand for that, but there's very few people with the right skill set. And so my point with this slide is, just because you didn't learn it in school doesn't mean it gives you a pass to not know it, or you didn't learn it in trade school or whatever certification you got. Whatever you don't know, it's still your business to find a way to learn it. So if you're doing it, if you're working in a job now that you see that's going to be, whatever you know now won't be relevant 5 years from now, now is the time to start upskilling yourself and figuring out how do you get on track to be able to fill the demand that will be needed in the time to come. So really learning starts or continues after school is over, because as you clearly see by the stat, you aren't learning in today's schooling what you need to know to be successful in the workplace or to be able to meet the demand for what employees are needing in terms of a skill set.
Let me just briefly break in. Ida and I met when I was the workforce lead for Siemens PLM, so the big monstrous Siemens. And we were working on an apprenticeship program here in the state of Michigan called Matt Squared. And with that as a backdrop, what do you see as the role for employers in terms of educating their workforce? And I'll give my own impression on this is, in the apprenticeship program, we were hiring 18-year-olds and bringing them into the apprenticing programs. And one of the apprentices we had was on a stage at one point. She says, look, I'm 24 years old. I have a good career and no college loan debt. And there's other Siemens programs actually where they were putting $180,000 a year into their, or $180,000 into their apprentices, and seeing a 50% return on investment. So I'm rolling a ton of facts. I apologize, but I guess my own position, I'm wondering if you guys agree, is we really need a dramatically different relationship between employer and worker, and however they learn, whether or not that's school. And what do you guys see in terms of do you guys see a new role for schools and learning?
Yep, so that's actually the perfect tee up to the next two slides, Pat. So I almost as if I paid you. So in terms of this slide right here, the message we're giving our clients, and this is a slide I always use with my clients, is that you have to put the time in terms of the cost or the investment to retraining your staff, and also allow them the time, the dedicated time to actually learn that. And the cost of that is far outweighed by the retention and the succession planning and the attraction of talent that you will be able to get. Because when we go on campus to recruit students, students ask these types of questions. Do I get to learn? Do I get to go to conferences? Do I get to go to, do I get to take different classes and learn different parts of the organization? And so many organizations are now coming up with a trainee program, or a program where you work in different parts of the organization at different times to learn different things. But they also provide you with protected time to be able to learn about new skills, which then also I'll share with you this slide here as well, which talks about the different ways that we tell companies they should go about teaching topics to their clients. And this is also part of the PwC story. So you will see on the left, there's a whole bunch of different ways that our staff have been learning about digital. We've done 2-day digital academy. People take 2 days and they go and they learn about robotics, or they learn about data analysis or data visualization. There's also, you can do at-will learning, where you can go on our website and on a website internally and be able to download self-directed courses to be able to learn that way. There's also in-person, day-long, week-long, 2-week-long classes or certifications you can do. You can go to external conferences. You can get learning bursts, which is like basically you set a program to say what you want to learn over the next 6 months, and every day it gives you like a burst of like a 20-minute article to read, or a 5-minute quiz to learn about a different topic. There's also we have this thing, a weekly game show we have within the firm, where someone comes in at 2 o'clock every week and talk about a specific digital topic, and then there's a quiz at the end, and if you win the quiz, you get points, and then at the end of the quarter, whoever gets the most points wins a certain amount of money or whatever. So to answer your question, Pat, the organization as a company, it's now on the organization to find creative ways to educate their workforce and to provide them time and opportunity to learn new things that they can then bring it into the organization. One other thing I'll highlight is at PwC, we have these things called digital accelerators. These are people that every year we take about, let's say, 200 people. We take them out of the workforce. We take them out and they spend all of their time learning new digital tools about programming bots, about data analysis. They become experts in it. And at the end of their like 6-month or 8-month rotation in that learning acceleration program, they are then dispatched to the organization to then be advocates for change and learning, and to be able to find ways to apply what they've learned into the way we work now with our clients and internally. And they're also able to help provide that learning to our clients as well. And so then every year we get more people in that program. And so within a couple of years, we'll have a large portion of our population of staff that's trained on specific tools that then challenge the way we do work internally at PwC and challenge the way we actually work with our clients.
And I'll just add an example of how I've seen that work at PwC and at other clients. So if we all as a firm have been upskilled on where there are opportunities for something that could be automated, a particular process, something like Verne and I often have to prepare weekly status reports for our clients on a project. We have taken the training. We know that there's an opportunity. I remember in the training that I could write a bot to do that, but maybe I'm not the best person. What I could do is call upon one of those digital accelerators that Verne had mentioned. They've gone through very specialized training. They're working closely with the business and help actually with the programming language, whether it would be something we would use in Alteryx or UiPath or whatever it might be, to automate a particular task. So it is, this whole network, it starts with upskilling all of us to recognize where we have opportunities to do something better just digitally, and then really tapping into maybe a smaller pool of specialized trained resources on the particular programming language that we can tap into. And that's the role that they've been asked to play which I think is really interesting. And we're seeing organizations more and more move towards something like that. Just going back to, Verne's earlier slide on the need for those who have those highly specialized analytical data science skills. We can't create enough of them just coming out of school and college. So organizations have had to do something themselves. And the Digital Accelerator Program has been what PwC has done to accomplish that. And then their ask is to really cascade that knowledge throughout the entire organization. But it starts when people like Verne and myself recognize a particular opportunity that we could do something with automation or digital acumen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And in an interest of time, Rob, I'll flip down to the digital fitness app, and maybe you want to talk about this a little bit with the folks.
Yeah, so I don't know, has anyone had an opportunity to download the app or play around with it?
I think I have. I'm actually a little behind on my assignment.
Oh, are you? It's funny that you mentioned that, Ida. I was just telling Verne that I keep getting all these messages that you're right, I'm not completing my digital fitness plan for the week. So this is what we call a digital fitness app, but it starts first with a digital fitness assessment. And we have it in the presentation, but this is now available for free for anyone to leverage at any point. It's as easy as downloading from Apple, where you would any other app, and we have a code that you can leverage. And it's really broken into, and the reason I'm playing around with my iPad, because I have it now on my iPad and my phone. I actually like working with it on my iPad. It's designed around first starting to assess where are you in terms of your digital fitness, right? So we all have many apps that Fitbit and others. This one really takes some of those concepts and measures you in a couple of key areas. What is your digital skill set, number one? What is your mindset when you think about what does it mean, and do you have some of those behaviors, number three? And then we also recognize that a big component of digital fitness is, relationships. So an individual would download the app, they would go in, they would self-assess themselves on those 4 dimensions, and they would have an initial score. And sometimes I think most people, I know I was surprised that, wow, my score was actually pretty low. So with that's your baseline. And then we, just in the digital fitness, and I'm just pulling it up here just for presentation purposes, there's a library of assets, right? That really we have 300 or so curated assets on a multitude of topics. And you're not going to walk away from the digital fitness app being 100%, you're ready to be a data scientist, but you are going to be introduced to all of these, I'll just read a couple of examples of smart cities, robotics, what does it mean really, cryptocurrency, net neutrality. I mean, there's a library of all of topics that, quite candidly, as just an individual who is working, a member of our society, are topics that I want to know more about, just so I'm better versed in a multitude of things. So over time, you have an option to select a fitness plan that you would want to participate, and then you engage in the content through listening, through reading, and then through watching. Is our approach to it. And each week, if you complete your hour or 20 minutes, whatever you've selected for yourself, your digital fitness score increases over time. And then people like to go in and play with the content and then reassess themselves periodically as well. What this has done, right? So as we introduced it in 2017 to our entire organization, it's put everyone on an equal playing field of common language. Because we are expected to have conversations with our clients. We hear the term Internet of Things. Let's learn more about that. Gig economy, fintech, all of these different topics around digital content and what it really means to think about 3D printing or augmented reality. that we are asked to have better, more robust conversations with our clients. So if anything, this gives you a flavor for all of these topics, where you have strengths, where you have opportunities to develop, and to really continuously assess yourself. The other thing I'll say about, while this app is around digital fitness, what we are seeing more and more, and as someone who focuses with working with our clients on learning strategy and how they training in an organization, not just on digital topics, but other broad topics, it's a new way of learning too. It's, we hear a lot about micro-sized or bite-sized learning, learning on demand, and that's exactly what this app is designed to do. And organizations, whether it's a leadership development program, there's now an app that typically goes with that, and curated content as one moves through a leadership development program that they are asked to complete. So I think it's a really exciting time as we, or you might be questioning, well, how do I upskill myself? Is it about enrolling in a class? Is it about taking an online self-study? And what we're seeing more and more is it's trending towards these microbursts, small opportunities for learning on demand, and starting with something like, as you see the platform here with our digital fitness app.
And then Rob, I'm going to jump in because that's how I got to you guys. That I actually discovered the fitness app by accident, truthfully.
Oh, okay.
And so because I knew Ray, I said, hey, have you thought about doing the reverse? Because I know that you guys were using it to help with your clients.
Yeah.
And so I asked Ray, have you thought about putting it out to the community and then work it backwards?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we thought about it, and that's how I got to Verne. What I like about it is that the terminology is very simple.
It is.
A lot of times when you start talking about emerging technology and you start doing your own self-study, some of it is industry complicated.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the industry is writing to themselves. They don't write to the general consumer. And so the information is not really simple for the general consumer. And that's what I like about the app, is that I can go in and do my 5 minutes worth of reading. And it's very simple. It's explained in a way that I can understand it, whether it's reading, whether it's audio or video. And it's a very simple way to learn high technology. So I wanted to expose it to my students, but I also wanted to expose it in a bigger way, because I just think that the more people who understand the language of industry, the faster that the industry can grow.
I think that's a great point. And I love what you said, Ida, about just making it accessible. Another example, I was on one of the assets that was talking about, how will robotics play a bigger role in the surgeries that we have? And it was like a quick 2 or 3 minute video on what that looks like and, what we can expect over time. So I love that it covers different aspects of industry, in bite-sized, very easily accessible topics, but maybe I didn't actually even know anything about one of those topics to begin with, but at least I've been introduced to it and would know where I would want to actually go. And Jahara, to your point on specializing or doing more research on if I want to do that.
Then the second thing that it does, and to go back to Jahara's point, being a jack of all trades versus specialization, one of the things that I think that the app does is that it allows you to know where is the industry going.
Yeah.
Half the battle is deciding where do you situate yourself. But a lot of times you don't have that disposal of where the industry is going. And I give you a good example. And I tell people, I started in corporate America as a check filer. I literally filed checks for bank statements, right? And I'll never forget when my boss came in and says, we're going to be automating the check filing. And the whole check filing department almost passed out, right? And I said, can I join that department? Why? Because I'm trying to get out of this department, right? And if you're going to automate that whole check filing system and bank statement system, I am glad to know that. So let me get out of this. And that's how I ended up in technology. But the digital fitness app gives you an idea of where industry is going, so that you can kind of pinpoint the company that you're working with, where it's going, and where you could sandwich yourself or situate yourself to make yourself valuable.
That's exactly right.
Exactly right. It's a good way of looking at it. Yeah.
I'm just going to briefly add, sorry, University of Phoenix has an ad that almost exactly replicates that story. In that case, it's a woman who's working on the manufacturing floor, working a machine, and then you can see a robot, a factory robot, kind of at the distance, and she kind of looks over at it, and then her job goes away, and then you realize that she's a single mom with 2 kids, and then she goes to University of Phoenix and gets an IT degree, and now I give presentations, and I use that as I go through that advertisement as part of the presentations, and then get to the punchline, which is, hey, this is the University of Phoenix is talking about this, right? This isn't MIT. This isn't University of Michigan. This is my own. I teach a class at Oakland University. It's not my own school. In any event, I point to her and say, well, this is a woman with both manufacturing and IT skills, and she's suddenly in a 6-figure career. Really by doing the same story that Ida, you just talked about. So I think it's a powerful story, and some schools, some places are beginning to pick up on it, are starting to recognize that, oh, we need to be rethinking that. So I'm always looking forward to that sort of stuff happening.
Awesome.
That's a great story too.
Great. Does anyone have any other questions? Because we're getting to our hour. I thank you, Verne and Rob, for giving us an hour of your time.
Absolutely.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, the digital platform that you all were talking about, you're talking about that was available on Apple. Is that the only? Because I have like Samsung, Android, so.
I think we have a slide, maybe the last one.
It's both on Google Play and the Apple Store.
Okay.
Because I downloaded it from Google Play because I have Android. And then there's a code that you can use for the invite code that's on the slide, and it's learn, LRNALL. So learn all without the vowels in the learn. And I would say download it. I'm behind because of the holiday. I chose a 20-minute plan, and I'm even behind on that one, but I'm going to catch up. But I would say I've been working on it for the last, 7-8 weeks, and it's been really insightful.
I'm going to take a look at it because you actually answered the other question I had, Miss Ida, which was how do you, in kind of adapting, how would you know what to work toward or what's kind of trending and what's going to be a job in the future so that you're not learning something that's almost obsolete?
Yeah.
That's a good question for you guys. How do you advise the clients when you tell them about their staff, what they should specialize in?
No, I think she was saying that we answered it. So I think it's this thing like the digital fitness app. It gives you what's current, what's coming up, what's cutting edge. And I think that then at least gives you an idea of what's coming up and what piques your interest, and you can see what's relevant to you and your organization. And then from there, you can dive in deeper and deeper as you go. So I think this is a starting point to know what's coming. I think is a great way to start.
And then I'm going to add my 2 cents for my students who are on the line. Because the digital is growing like a weed, so is cybersecurity. So you could put yourself almost any place you choose because digital is everywhere.
That's true. Now, a kind of follow-up question for that, when it comes to kind of what's trending and what you see, so like in the job market, for instance, you'll see a lot of Java, JavaScript, Python, that kind of thing. But Python is the up-and-coming language, and even though JavaScript is popular, like the check filing was popular at that time, how do you know also what's going away?
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't always know exactly what's going to go away, what's going to be popular tomorrow versus today. So I think I think you should see it as you're not going to learn something and that's going to be the only thing you're going to learn ever. I think even if you learn a script that might go away and there's a new one that comes on stream, the concepts you learn and the one you do learn, you can possibly port over some of that thinking and that logic and some of that mindset over to whatever you would learn in the future. So I think nothing you will learn, I think, will be throwaway work. Everything might port over, but there are some aspects of which you will learn, I think, will port over. So I think I wouldn't be too concerned or paralyzed about deciding what to learn, as long as you're learning something, because there will be aspects of whatever you do learn that will transfer to something else. But I think being current on technical articles and trade articles and websites to just see where things are trending, I think will help inform you as to where things may go a year to 5 years from now.
And then I'm going to interject at the beginning of this presentation. Verne said something that he has advised most of his clients to be agile. And I had to laugh because sometimes the industrial side of the house is not as agile as the rest of the industry. But in this particular decade, from 2020 to 2030, I would say being agile and being able to change and be fluid and move is probably the best skill you could ever have. And roll, like they say, roll with it. But a lot of times we get kind of stuck on, well, I got this skill and I'm gonna have it and it's my specialty. And I think that this decade, the skill you need to be able to have is to be agile and being able, flexible to make change. Because things are going to be changing very quickly.
Yeah,
exactly right. And it's all about your attitude as well. Having a positive attitude about you're constantly learning and you want to know how to get better. I think having that mindset will serve you more than anything else that we talked about.
So any other questions?
Yes, I have a question about the digital accelerator that was mentioned earlier. And you just said you take employees out of the workforce and put them in this. So are these PwC employees that you're moving around, or is this something that's open to your clients or open to the public?
So in that particular program, that's actually PwC employees. We take them out of their typical everyday role and they just focus, their full-time job becomes learning. So that's a PwC program. We also offer to our clients, we have like 1 and 2 day academy of learning of a certain topic or a certain technology or software that we offer to clients, that we can come into a client's office and teach for a day or 2 on a specific topic.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Well, guys, I thank you so much for the opportunity. It's exciting. Hopefully we're going to keep talking about the digital fitness app in many different circles, because I think it could make a major change across a community like Detroit. I mean, if you get it in the hands of every Detroiter, it could change a community very quickly.
I agree.
So I'm excited.
It's a great conversation. Thanks for inviting us and having us. This is great.
Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Great connecting with all of you.
Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.